Hi there. My name is Diane Steiger. I'm with Matrix College Consulting. I'm really excited that you are taking the time to find out which of the tests, the ACT or the SAT, is best for you, and that you're going to be starting your test prep with me. So what I've put together is kind of a checklist for you to help you determine which test would be better suited to your strengths. So what I'd like you to do is take out a piece of paper. I have kind of a fancy version on the screen, but you just need to take out a piece of paper and write down ACT and SAT. And you're just going to be tallying kind of a scorecard. And then if you want to use this method, then what you'll do is by the end of this video, you can just look at your tallies. And if you have more marks in the ACT, then that's the one you might consider taking. If you have more marks in the SAT, that's the one you might consider taking. Okay, so pretty easy, hopefully. Let me share my tally sheet with you. So we're going to be looking at some really specific details about these tests so you can get a better feel for which one you think you could try to take. So the first section we're going to consider is reading. The ACT has 4 reading passages. The SAT has 5. You get considerable more time per question on the SAT, which is 75 seconds a question versus 53 seconds per question on the ACT. So there's more reading on the SAT, but you also get a lot more time. I would say in general, you would consider taking the ACT if you are a fast reader and if you are looking for kind of easier reading comprehension type questions. And I would consider taking the SAT if you are a reader who has a pretty good vocabulary and you are looking to read a little slower and spend a little bit more time per question. So go ahead and put a tally mark either on the ACT or the SAT for reading. The next one we're going to look at is grammar. So on the grammar section, they're both called different things. On the ACT, it's called English, and on the SAT, it's called writing and language. The ACT gives you 45 minutes, but there are 75 questions, and the SAT gives you less time, 35 minutes, but there are 44 questions. So the ACT section has a lot more questions, and just in terms of seconds per question, you get 36 seconds per question on the ACT. You get 48 seconds per question on the SAT. So more time, you get more time per question on the SAT, less questions. I will say that in general, the thinking is just at a little bit higher level for the SAT than the ACT. So if you're looking for more time per question, I would again check the SAT. And if you're looking for, if you feel like you have a really good grasp of grammar and you can answer questions a little bit quicker on that, if that's one of your strengths, I would choose the ACT. I also added a line here for if you are an ESL student. So I think the general consensus for people who are ESL students, English as a second language, the SAT gives you more time per question in every single section. So in general, I would say you'd probably want to take the SAT. If that is important to you, if you think you are just looking for more time overall, and you are an ESL student, give yourself a point, a little tally for the SAT. If you are not an ESL student, just don't put a tally mark. We're going to skip that one. Okay, next, math. This is a really significant difference for these two tests. So in the math, here's the biggest difference. There are 2 sections out of 4 that are math on the SAT. One is with a calculator and one is without a calculator. It is worth 50% of your score on the SAT. The SAT score is out of 1600, the math is 800. So it's half of your score, 50%. So it's a significant portion. So right away, if you feel like math is your strong suit, pick the SAT for this one, give yourself a point. If math isn't your strongest suit, it is only worth 25% on the ACT. There are 4 sections on the ACT, math is one of them. So it's only worth 25% versus 50%. So if math is not your strong suit, I would check the ACT. Also, just a couple of other things to consider. And if you want to give yourself an extra point here, that sounds good. You can give yourself 2 points for math. It's just really a matter of how important is this section to you. So if you are comfortable not using a calculator on a test and you like math in general, and that's okay with you, I would say give yourself a point for the SAT. And I would also say if you are currently a geometry student or have just finished geometry, you might consider giving yourself a point on the ACT, because ACT is a little bit heavier on geometry. Okay, so give yourself 1 or 2 tally marks for either the ACT or the SAT on math. Like I said, if you gave yourself a tally mark and math is a really big deal to you, either you're really strong in it or you really don't like math, then I would give yourself 2 tally points on whichever one you picked. Next up, let's look at science. So the basic idea is this: the ACT has a science section. It's one of 4 sections. So if you like science, ACT is what you're going to give yourself a point for here. If you don't like science and don't want to spend, I can't remember how many minutes it is on the science section on the ACT, then give yourself a point for the SAT. Now, I will tell you the SAT does contain science, but it's kind of like embedded within the reading section. So you'll get a couple, 2 or 3 out of the 5 passages in the reading section on the SAT have science in them. And they are accompanied with charts and graphs. So you will get some science, but it's not like a full entire section in and of itself. So that one I think is pretty easy. Again, if you like science and if you want to be tested on science, choose the ACT. If science is not super important to you, not one of your strengths, give yourself a point for the SAT. And finally, timing. I added a point for this just in case you need a tiebreaker. So if you like to use up every minute of a test time, like in your regular classes or like in any tests you've taken already, you would benefit more from the SAT. Okay, SAT, there's more time per question on every single section across the board. So consider giving yourself a point for that. On the other hand, if you finish tests quickly and you always have time to spare, that really shouldn't influence you. So maybe don't give yourself any points for timing. I just find a lot of people, particularly with the reading section, a lot of people tend to appreciate the extra time per question for the SAT. So after you made all of your tally marks, hopefully you have a clear winner. And if that's the case, that's the test that you can try first. If you don't have a clear winner, I would just maybe think about, how much of the math do you really want to consider? And how strong is your reading and vocabulary skills? So if you are wanting to showcase your math abilities, I would probably, if you're kind of on the fence, I would choose the SAT. If you're on the fence and you really like science, I would pick the ACT. And if you feel like your vocabulary and reading comprehension skills are really good and you want to showcase those, that's kind of a close call, but it might give you the edge to take the SAT. So I hope this helps and you have a clear picture of which tests you're going to try. Thank you for watching.